Hear from General Frank Grass, former member of the Joint Chiefs, plus veteran leaders from Equifax and Scale AI.
Business leaders, veterans, and community members from across Missouri. This conversation on veteran leadership and mental health matters.
It's free and open to the public, but seating is limited.
Register now at welcomehomeforum.org.
1 in 4 women will have an abortion before the age of 45 in this country. That's the tragedy we must work to stop. Mike Ferguson from The Morning Show here, and that is why Reach Reproductive Health is here, to empower parents to save the lives of innocent children and to see these families come to Christ. And you can be a part of saving and changing lives. So pray and visit outreachforlife.org to learn more, volunteer, and donate. That's outreachforlife.org.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Cloudy skies and cool temperatures, low 50s for a high today. Not a bad day. We're just not really going to break out of the clouds very much. And there is a chance for a little light rain, maybe even a couple of wet snowflakes that would result in wet roads overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. And the high temperature tomorrow in the low to mid 50s again. But boy, this weekend looks great. Friday and Saturday both. And then Sunday, we've got a chance for another wintry mix. In the First Alert Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kent Earhart.
This hour of Colombo and Company brought to you by Gutter Pros. Water goes where we tell it. Call 314-656-7195 or visit them at gutterpros.com.
Well, hello and welcome to Wednesday afternoon. There was a big speech last night. Did you know that? Did you watch it? Did you listen to it? I listened to most of it right here on News Talk STL. By the way, I'm Tony Colombo. Welcome to Colombo and Company. And there is such a difference, and I think it's a good thing. And I'm not just saying that because that I work for a radio station and have been in radio for so long. I mean, obviously, I have a little bit of a bias for radio, but there's just a big difference between listening to a speech or an event like this and watching it, because when you're listening to it, you don't have the distractions of, whatever people are doing in the audience or the crowd or whatever, and you're more focused on what's being said and the meaning behind the speech. And so I picked up on a lot of that because going back after the speech and then, throughout the day today before the show, watching a lot of the highlights and watching a lot of the demonstrations that happened during the speech yesterday, kind of puts a different view on things than I got last night from listening to a lot of it. And there's no doubt about it that while you were listening, you could still pick up plenty of the distractions and the boos and the jeering and the other various ridiculous things that happened through the night. But I don't know, it's just a different experience. And I think you pay more attention to the words and the meaning of the speech when you're listening to it. I know way back, going back to the very first presidential debate that was televised, the debate between Kennedy and Nixon. Watched multiple, documentaries and about that event, and I'm sure many of you are very familiar with that as well. And, Nixon was, it's considered to be, like the beginning of the end for Nixon in that presidential campaign because he looked so stiff and nervous. And we now know that he was literally in pain from a major knee injury that he suffered just a couple hours before the speech when he slammed the door of his car door on his own leg. So he was literally in pain, but also, he was just not as natural. He was not as charming. He didn't have the charisma that John Kennedy had. And that came off really a lot on television. He looked, he was sweating. Nixon was sweating and looked nervous and looked stiff. And Kennedy looked so natural and whatever. So people watching on the television, they saw that, and it really had a lot to do with what they their takeaway of who did better and what they thought of that. And the people that listened on the radio to that, it was a much closer. I think Kennedy still was considered to be, the victor of that debate, but it was a lot different because people were only listening to the words and, could only hear what the two men were saying and were only able to, process their thoughts and their words and put it against each other. So it's just a little bit different experience. And I think you get more of the meaning of the speech behind it when you're not watching it on television. I know, the radio guy sticking up for radio, but it's what I really believe. But certainly the show was fantastic in many other ways. The optics of the speech last night, which we will get into as we go through the afternoon. We also have, we have some parts of the speech that I want to talk about. We have the rebuttal, the Democratic rebuttal from the Virginia governor. I want to talk about that as well. We've got fallout since the speech already. What have people been saying? What have the Democrats been saying? What has Donald Trump been saying? He was very active. He's been very active on Truth Social, on social media since the speech ended. So we'll unpack all of that as we go through the afternoon today. We've also got more Zorhan Mondani in the news. We've got that crazy video of the Whataburger in Texas. We might talk about that during Klose's cabinet. I don't know. We'll see. It's just a wild video that has gone super viral. If you haven't seen it yet, there was a guy who tried to assault staff members of a Whataburger in Texas, and the manager of the Whataburger beat the guy down with a trash can and the fry basket. I don't know if the fry basket was fresh out of the oil when he did that, but it's pretty wild stuff. If you haven't seen it, the video is everywhere. So we'll probably have some fun, talk about that a little bit later on in the show. We've got more on the tensions between the United States and Iran. And we will be joined this afternoon to help talk about all of these things. Danny Define, News Talk STL contributor Danny Define will be with us in a little less than a half an hour from now, around 2:40 this afternoon. He'll be here with us. I'm going to save a lot of this speech, a lot of the conversation about the State of the Union and the reaction and the fallout and, just kind of breaking all that stuff down when we get Danny on the line here in a little bit. Also, as I mentioned, in the 3 o'clock hour today, as we do every Wednesday, we like to have a little fun on Wednesdays. We open up Klose's cabinet, talk to our buddy Mark Klose from KC95 and Skip Weber from Weber Chevrolet, the sponsor of Klose's cabinet. So those guys will be with us in the 3 o'clock hour. And in just about 6 or 7 minutes from now, 6, 7, didn't mean to do that, 6, 7, we will be joined by Rodney Boyd, our Missouri political insider, as there is all of these things happening on the national stage and the international stage and the fallout and, the unpacking of the State of the Union. There's still a lot going on here in the state of Missouri. So we are, on our last week of February of this legislative session. Only a couple months left, really. March and April and a little bit of May of the legislative session here in the state of Missouri this year. So it's go time for the lawmakers in the state of Missouri and these issues that we have talked a lot about with Rodney, like taxes, income tax, personal property tax, school choice has been another major issue. The budget is always a big deal when it comes to the Missouri legislative session each and every year, but also some other issues like AI and its impact on the future of Missourians. I want to talk about that as we go through the afternoon, and we talk to Rodney Boyd here in a few minutes. Also, did the State of the Union have any, does what the president say during a State of the Union address, does that have any direct impact or influence on what's happening in Jeff City and in state capitals around the country? We'll talk to Rodney Boyd about all of those things. I will say that one of the things that, I was taking some notes and have a couple of bullet points, things that I, wrote down as my sort of big takeaways from the speech last night. And one of those was regarding there was a big to-do, a big moment, big spectacle whenever Donald Trump was talking about immigration. And he was talking about sanctuary cities, and he was talking about what's been happening in Minneapolis and other places around the country. And he made a call for, of course, he did the stand thing, which we'll get into that for sure a little bit later on, because I thought that was one of the biggest moments of the speech. But also during that part of the conversation, the president called for the end of sanctuary cities. And that's something that the federal government can't really, do on its own, or the president at least can't do completely on his own. He was literally calling on the leaders of sanctuary cities to move away from those policies and, just follow the law, the law of their own states, the law of their own cities, and the law of the federal government. And I thought that was a big moment, because that sort of attached, to the state of Missouri in my brain, because our very own Senator Eric Schmitt has been one of the leading voices on the national stage of trying to eliminate sanctuary cities. And he has been one of the Republicans. We're still in a government shutdown. Nobody remembers that, but we're still in a partial government shutdown right now. DHS is shut down. Many departments like TSA, Border Patrol, the Coast Guard, and others are not getting any funding or any pay right now. And it all has to do with the Democrats' attempt to defund ICE and take away ICE's powers and take away their funding and, all of these things. Whereas Eric Schmitt, and this is what, I thought was interesting about the president mentioning this yesterday about sanctuary cities, Eric Schmitt has been one of the leading voices, if not the leading voice in the United States Senate, pushing for the exact opposite, pushing for more resources for ICE, more training for ICE officers, more equipment for ICE officers, more staff, more, just more officers in general. Exactly the opposite and antithesis of what the Democrats are trying to accomplish. So, when it comes to these issues, you wonder if there's going to be any major impact on or influence on what's happening here in the state of Missouri, and as I mentioned, in state capitals around the country when it comes to the State of the Union and, whatever the influence that may be. We're going to discuss all of that and more as we go through the afternoon. As I mentioned, Danny Define, News Talk STL contributor, coming up in about 25 minutes or so. But first, we are going to focus on the local issues of the day. We're going to get our Missouri political insider, Rodney Boyd, on the line with us next.
Made in St. Louis for St. Louis. It's News Talk STL.
Hey, thank you very much for taking my call.
News, analysis, opinion.
Yes, I just want you to know what a breath of fresh air you people are.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
No pain, don't vinyl, go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
Never paint again with Rhino Shield. Listen to what a couple of happy customers have to say.
My family's business is over 10,000 square feet, and it did not have the curb appeal I wanted. Our building was really faded. You came out, you gave me all of these options that would fit my building. I don't want to have to paint my building again. 25 years is a long time to not have to worry about the outside maintenance of your building as far as paint. That's a no-brainer. That's why Rhino Shield worked for me.
What a wonderful job they did. It's beautiful. They were very thoughtful, kind, considerate guys. Appreciate all the work that these two young men did.
Call Rhino Shield, 877-25-RHINO, 877-25-RHINO, or 877-25rhino.com. See what we did there? Genius. Tell them, ladies.
No pain, don't Rhino. Go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
Scott, can you believe it's already been more than a decade since the Queen of Carpet sold flooring to St. Louis area contractors?
I know, but I don't have to be a king to offer contractors today's lowest prices.
Yes, contractors owe it to their customers and themselves to shop at Best Buy Flooring for the largest in-stock selection of carpet, carpet tile, sheet vinyl, laminate, hardwood, luxury vinyl plank, and luxury vinyl tile.
Plus 3 convenient locations, North County, South County, and Metro East.
Open 7 days a week.
Best flooring, best selection, Best Buy. Best Buy Flooring.
Producer Joey V from the Tim Jones and Chris Arp Show here, reminding you, don't waste a buck on movies that suck. Tune in to Joey V's Movies Fridays at 5:45 for reviews you can trust. Brought to you by Harry J. Steakhouse in Moscow Mills.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The Supreme Court ruled last week that the president's tariffs are illegal. Does he have to give back all that money? We'll ask Zach Smith about that at 4:25.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps. Weekdays at 4 on News Talk STL.
Welcome back to Colombo and Company on 101.9 News Talk STL. As I mentioned, a lot to unpack and react to from the State of the Union last night. Not just the State of the Union either. There's already been a lot of action on social media. The president's been very active on Truth Social since the speech. So we're going to continue to unpack the speech and all of that fallout as we go through the rest of the afternoon. But right now we are going to bring the focus a little more local, as we do every Wednesday afternoon at this time, and talk to our Missouri political insider, the great Rodney Boyd, is on the line with us. Rodney, how are you, my friend? And does this State of the Union have any impact on things in Jeff City, or is it just business as usual in the Capitol?
No, look, it's business as usual. It has an impact from just the perspective of people talking about it.
Sure.
But this process is far enough removed from D.C. to where no impact. And in fact, I think the House just went in session and the Senate's in session, and there's a potential for some maybe some things to get done across the political divide. One of the challenges has been that Democrats in the Senate, where they still have a lot of power, have been very frustrated with the past, special session, and so they've been sort of slowing things down. And there's a sense that maybe we'll see that there might be some consensus to move some things forward. So it's the opposite of what you would anticipate based on what we saw last night, where I don't think there's a path in D.C. for any kind of bipartisan anything. So it's kind of the opposite here.
Yeah, no, talking yesterday with who was the one that brought this up? We were talking yesterday with one of our guests about the success that Bill Clinton had, and the successes that he had in working with Newt Gingrich and Republicans and Democrats coming together to have a budget surplus for the which is just unheard of. On the national level.
And people forget this, and welfare reform.
Yeah. And it was because of that, the deal with America or whatever exactly it was called, that Newt Gingrich had come up with, and the partnership with the president at the time. And, partisanship used to be my entire life until just a handful of years ago, Rodney, in being around politics and talking to politicians, partisanship was something that, you put in your political ads and you strove for, and you talked about how you were reaching across the aisle and you want to work with the other side. To your point of what you just said now, not only is partisanship not a goal anymore, it's something to be criticized for. If you work with the other side, your opponent will use that against you. Oh, this guy worked with the Democrats, or this guy worked with the Republicans on a bill. Like, what a traitor. And I don't know how we're supposed to get progress anywhere in Missouri or Illinois. In Missouri, we have the luxury of a supermajority, I guess, in order to just sort of be able to steamroll things through. But I don't know how you're supposed to really, have any long-term success or progress if working together is something that is looked at as a sin, as a negative.
Tony, I'm glad you're talking about this, because a lot of listeners are probably wondering how we move anything forward. And there are a lot of things that need to be moved forward. We as a nation, you, me, we got kids. One day we'll have grandkids. We can't afford the national debt. We can't afford the cost of these partial shutdowns and what it ultimately costs the nation that we are in now with the Homeland Security deal. And you're right. Somewhere along the way in the last maybe 10, 15 years, the idea of working across the aisle somehow got conflated into like abandoning your core values. And it's never meant that. When you had Gingrich and Clinton, neither one of those guys moved on their core values. They just figured out what policy consensus they could work from, right? They still politically fought to keep control of the House. Newt Gingrich and his team they fought hard. They did what they had to do. But there's a point when the campaign ends and the work has to get done. And we have more issues today in America that we got to figure out, right? So Supreme Court ruling, I know you've been talking about it. There is a cure, right? The cure, and basically I think what the majority opinion was getting at was, if you want to do this, then just get Congress to ratify it. Get Congress to send you the approval. So the question is, why haven't we done that? Well, in D.C., there aren't the supermajorities. The margins are thin, especially in the Senate. So you probably don't see a pathway to get 60 senators to vote to give the tariff authority the way it was used. So now you go back and do another executive order. It further divides. So there's a question that I did talk to someone about last night, and it was a really conservative person. And the question is a rhetorical question that everybody has to answer. Was President Lincoln right when he said a house divided against itself cannot stand, or was that just rhetorical commentary? Because if he's right, how do we as a nation move competitively against the power forces of China, Russia, all these other nations that are now, whatever they're doing, they don't have this internal sort of impenetrable division within their geographical borders, and they're moving with one agenda, and that's dominance, right? While we have these broad divisions that stop us from dealing with national debt, reforms that we need to move our economy forward, right? That's the real question, I think.
I totally agree. And as I mentioned a minute ago, in Missouri, we have the luxury of a supermajority for one party to be able to, get their agenda accomplished because of the power that was been given to them by the voters. But that's not the case on the national stage, and I don't ever see that being the case on the national stage.
No, you're right.
I just don't ever
think
see
you're
that.
right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think you're right, but the consequences, Tony, are we don't get stuff done, and we keep having, these shutdowns of our government, either whole or part. And there are real consequences, as you see, when we're not funding Homeland Security, we're not able to fund the TSA and all these other institutions, because I understand people want to use these as political footballs. This cannot become the new normal in our government. It doesn't matter who's in charge. It can't, because we're not addressing the issues that we need to. We're not addressing deficits. We're not addressing the policy issues, right? So we got to somehow, and I don't know where the superpower comes in, but we got to really wrestle with this. And, now we're in the purview of the midterm, so there's not going to be any sense of what compromise could look like. And it's just gotten so toxic in D.C. To your point earlier, even to be seen like, there used to be these things in D.C. where politicians of different parties would socialize together. They may go to dinner or they may go to a cigar place or whatever. I'm not there, but I'm hearing that doesn't happen anymore. Like, and so when you take that social connectivity and you diminish it, and now all people do is talk at each other, I don't know how that house can prosper.
Yeah.
That house, which is the United States of America. And you and I, with these kids we're trying to raise, we want them to have a better life than we had.
Yeah. Amen. And you're right. The hatred and division that has just been sown into our politics, it just can't last. And you hope that maybe there's a line or a limit to this where, whether it be this generation or the next generation, whatever it is, just says enough is enough, and they realize that we have to come back together, at least on some issues. Nobody has to, as you mentioned, Rodney, nobody has to abandon your core beliefs, but you need to work together, especially in the areas that you can, where you do have some commonality.
Tony, abandoning one's core beliefs is not compromise. It's some form of cowardice, right?
Yeah.
Defending and standing on your principles and winning people over to understand why your principles are better for our country, that's where compromise should live. But when you don't have the desire to even talk to each other, you yell at each other. I mean, it does not work in a democratic republic if we're not actually finding points of consensus without compromising your core values. But your values ought to be strong enough, I believe, to win people over, because they ought to have a common core of, like, this is going to make things better. And that I think is what you saw when back in the Bill Clinton, Newt Gingrich days. Those guys were not friends. They're probably not friends today, but they were able to move reforms first time in a generation on tax policy, welfare reform, things that were very, very hard to do, right? And we've got to find a way to get these hard things done in the near term, because our nation cannot continue in this divided, yelling at each other motif, because the world is moving rapidly. You know, you've got all kinds of things which we don't normally talk about on your show. We've got attacks on our currency. We've got people trying to remove the dollar as the world currency. Those kind of things we need to be united and say absolutely not.
Yeah.
We're not going to move into a world where BRICS becomes the currency of the world and the dollar loses 50% of its value in the next 10 years, because that's going to be devastating. So there are fights that we ought to be sort of saying, hey, we're going to divide where we divide, but we're going to work together as a nation. We're going to have a stronger economy. And so I just, like you said, somewhere there's got to be somebody that steps into the breach and pushes us into doing some things that are common sense.
Yeah.
And moving some policies forward that strengthen our nation. And that's what we really have to get it to.
Yeah, amen. Talking to Missouri political insider Rodney Boyd. You mentioned at the beginning, Rodney, that there, has been maybe some, or is currently maybe some movement happening, or some agreements, or some bills making some progress right now in Jeff City. What are the issues that are at focus right now in the state capitol?
I mean, look, the biggest focus, obviously, of the state capitol right now, both chambers, is the budget. We all know, we accept the fact that we have a significant budget crisis. And so there's a lot of bipartisan conversations about how do we move the state forward and with less money, right? And then there's conversations about education reform. There are real conversations about what kind of tax framework you and I are going to live under. Now, there's a lot of disagreement, but at least there are the people sitting in rooms and having the conversations and trying to advance policy. At the end of the day, the sheer weight of having supermajorities will prevail and some things will move. But what I respect about state government is, at least, even if people might yell today on one issue, they got to work together tomorrow on something else. And you see that in this process, and you don't see it in D.C. So I have a little bit of faith that, at least in this state, and I've seen this now for over 20 years, when it comes to the budget, usually you get a bipartisan product that's sent to the governor's desk. Are people unhappy? Yeah, but it gets done in a bipartisan way. And I think on some of these other policy issues, but there's a lot of heat on both sides, I think you're going to find some points of consensus and get something to the governor's desk that people at least will be able to say it wasn't just the byproduct of one party or implementing their will. And we'll see. But it's encouraging to see people at least starting to sit down and talk as we get to the midpoint of session. And there are a lot of issues. I mean, but there are big issues that shape the fate of this state: our tax structure, education structure, our workforce issues, issues around nuclear energy. You know, all these are issues that are being debated, talked about, and I think we're going to they'll find some points of consensus to move these issues forward. And that's a little bit encouraging to me, but time will tell.
So you mentioned nearing the midpoint of this session. We're at the end of another month. At the end of the month, you know, you're reminded how little time every time a month ends. It's a reminder of how little time, you know, even less time is left in a session. A couple weeks away from spring break now, which is kind of the unofficial halftime of the legislative session. With all of this in mind, this time limit in mind, the issues of and we can, you know, we'll unpack these issues in future conversations. But with just a couple minutes that we have left, Rodney, the big issues that we've talked about since day one: personal property tax, income tax, education reform. You know, there are other issues as well. Do you feel like there's still enough time realistically to get to all of these issues after the budget is decided, or are we going to have to start cutting some things off of that list and focus in other places?
Listen, I think there's plenty of time to get those non-budget issues, and they are being talked about and worked on in committee hearings. So, yeah, there's absolutely time and there's effort. But these issues are weighty, and so I think, you know, when you have the supermajority, when you have the governor's office, when you push some of these issues forward, these are not linear issues, right? What I mean by that is these issues think about education reform. You know, the typical education debate is not Republican-Democrat. It's more, you know, where are the rural superintendents and what do they think? And some of them come from deep red pockets in counties, right? So some of these issues, when you talk about the tax issue, there's, you know, a lot of the folks in the conversation around taxes, whether it's income tax or property tax, before they jump on board as organizations and groups, they want to understand with some sense of clarity, what is the replacement? What are we switching to? How's it going to impact our industry? So all these things are being sort of talked about in the right way as these issues and ideas move forward. But they're not, some of these issues are not linear. I mean, you've got organizations like the Realtors, or powerful group, powerful entity, and they are vehemently, cautiously, vehemently opposed and cautious about any idea of what comes on the other side of eliminating the income tax, right? And you're going to see that organization, and it's a big organization, and it's made up of Republicans and Democrats, maybe taking a position against this idea. So you've got to have a sort of a methodical approach about how you move some of these big issues through. But the simple answer is there is time, and the work is happening right now.
What's the last question, Rodney? What's the feeling in Jeff City? You can watch the State of the Union, and you can watch any hearing or action happening in the nation's capital, and you can feel the tension and the negativity just, you know, emitting from your television or your radio as you're monitoring that stuff. So, you know, every building, every session has a feel to it, a vibe to it. What's the vibe in Jeff City? Yeah. Is it positive? Is it negative? Go ahead.
I think the vibe in Jeff City now is one of cautious. In the majority party is one of cautious optimism.
Yeah.
It came into session with a lot of momentum on big ticket issues that we talked about, and then there are more big ticket issues put on the agenda by the governor this term. I think people, when the legislature in particular, because we have a citizen legislature where they got to go back home every Thursday, every Friday, and talk to their constituents. So I think people are cautiously optimistic about these big ideas, but they want more clarity in terms of how advancing these ideas will impact their constituents back home. And some of these answers are not as clear today as they'll have to be before you take floor votes and move things across the chambers. And like I said, even on some of the issues we haven't talked a lot about, like video lottery terminals, that is a big issue that's been sort of here, but the volume on it is so high now after a court ruling and other people wanting to.
Those illegal
advance
video
and not advance.
machines that are still operating everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think when you get to an issue like that, you go back home and you think about the small businesses, right, that have those machines.
Yeah.
And they thrive with those machines. And so if I'm the rep or senator from there, I got to be nuanced about what I'm doing up here, because when I go home and I walk into that local gas station or that local place, those owners, right, who are my neighbors, they're looking at me saying, hey, we've had these machines for a decade.
Right.
And we voted for you.
And they're working
So
for
it's
me.
not and they're working for me, and you're my representative, right? So there's a lot of nuance to this. That's why I think there's a cautious optimism that these things will get resolved, but people are looking for more specific answers that they can take back home and say, this is why I voted for this, or this is why I voted against this. And I think there's time that the work has to be done. As we've heard over and over again, the devil's in the details. And the details on some of these bills are going to really determine what ultimately can get passed, whether it's ed reform, whether it's the tax proposal, whether it's DL lottery terminal, all these issues. These require a very clear sense of what we're actually trying to pass, how it will impact the 114 counties that make up the great state of Missouri.
Well, listen, and we rely on you a lot and appreciate your time each and every week to help us unpack and understand and get some insight on all of these really important issues in the state of Missouri. Missouri political insider Rodney Boyd. Great stuff as always, my friend. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, my friend. Okay.
Yeah, you bet. Awesome stuff there. All right, we are going to switch gears and go back out to the national stage and unpack a little bit of the reaction and what we saw last night at the State of the Union. We're going to talk about that and more with News Talk STL contributor Danny Define joins us next on Colombo Company.
For podcast articles and more, find us on newstalkstl.com. News, analysis, opinion.
Funding for ICE and the Department of Homeland Security should not move forward.
What they're doing is putting politics ahead of the safety and security of this nation.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Hey, it's Vic Porcelli here with our great friend Chris Cooper from Serenity Wealth Management. Hi, Chris.
How are you, Vic?
I don't want to put anybody else down, but that when you go up and visit you at Serenity Wealth, your place looks like home.
So a lot of financial advisory offices, they have, the big mahogany desk or the big marble entryways and things like that. The stock market channel on the TV when you walk in the door, right? That doesn't really drive a good conversation. Good financial guidance and advice starts with a good conversation. People are nervous. People are afraid to talk about finances, right? And so you can see a little standoffish. Well, my objective is to try to have a good, casual conversation. By having those conversations about life, goals, objectives, it's what makes me understand what our financials are supposed to fund.
So if somebody does want to have a good conversation, how do they do that? How do they find you?
Our website is the best way to do that because you can get all the information you need, understand where we are, get a little bit more information, all that. SerenityWealthNow.com.
Reach out to Chris and Stacy today at SerenityWealthNow.com.
Investment advice offered through Fortis Capital Advisors, LLC.
JC's Wayback Machine.
This week, we'll revisit the 1999 implosion of the old arena and the hilariously misguided group that was trying to stop it. The A-list interview is with the crocodile hunter, Steve Irwin, who would have had a birthday a couple of days ago. And we'll acknowledge the 35th anniversary of Yo Vic arriving on the St. Louis airwaves. All brought to you by the Weber Automotive Group.
It's JC's Wayback Machine. Every Saturday night, 6 to 9. On News Talk STL.
Hey, it's Vic Porcelli, and my favorite sandwich from Capriati's is the Wagyu beef French dip. So good. It's the au jus that makes it. And the Wagyu beef is pretty good, too. I love Capriati's, and you will, too.
On Manchester at McKnight in Rock Hill.
This hour of Colombo and Company brought to you by Gutter Pros. Water goes where we tell it. Call 314-656-7195 or visit them at gutterpros.com.
Welcome back to Colombo Company on 119.94.1 News Talk STL. Thanks again to Missouri political insider Rodney Boyd for joining us in that last segment. Now, joining us on the line is News Talk STL contributor Danny Define. Danny, great to talk with you, my friend. And yeah, the world is on fire after the State of the Union address last night. Lot of spectacle, a lot of demonstrations last night, and plenty to talk about. How are you, my friend?
Tony, I'm doing well. And yeah, this is very timely, of course, with the State of the Union last night, longest State of the Union in American history. So we have a lot to unpack here today.
So one of the biggest moments of the speech, and it's been talked about a lot, but I haven't had a chance to talk about it yet, and I think it's been talked about a lot because it's important. The moment of the speech where the president said, "Stand if you believe the government should protect American citizens ahead of illegal immigrants." Not only did not a single Democrat stand, which is wild to me. I mean, I'm not surprised that I would have thought that there would have been some quote unquote moderate Democrats, some Democrats with some common sense. You know, I knew that the Ilhan Omars and Chuck Schumers and Rashida Tlaibs of the world weren't going to stand. But not only did not a single Democrat stand, the Democrats booed the president when he said that. That should be, that is not, Danny, that is not like that is not a tough question or a politically packed question. Should the United States government protect its citizens above all else? It's not a tough question, Danny, but it's not something the Democrats agree with.
Tony, and yes, that was probably the most important part of last night's speech. And I was actually just talking to a friend of mine about this morning, and he's just catching up watching the clips today. And he brought that up, and I'm like, I think that was a genius move by Trump, really putting them on the spot.
Because he knew that they would not stand. He knew they'd look foolish. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I thought Trump, and I certainly have had my criticisms of Trump on your program, but I thought last night it was truly one of the better State of the Union addresses that I've seen, and one of the stronger performances from Donald Trump. He came into it. He looked very energized. He was sharp. Started off with, of course, more of the theatrics. I thought that was really cool, having the U.S. Gold Cup team there, the hockey team.
Yeah.
Went on maybe a little bit too long for my taste. It was kind of drawn out, but a cool moment nonetheless. But then after he got through those formalities and handing out these different awards and honors, he went down the list and basically hammered the Democrats on every point. I'm sitting there on my couch last night watching this, getting flashbacks of 2016 Trump. I'm like, where has this guy been recently? Because this sounds like peak 2015, 2016 Donald Trump, when he was just calling out the establishment and the Democrats and the crazy far left, and he did not pull any punches. And I thought that move, asking the Congress to stand, hey, if you stand with American citizens, please get out of your seat right now. And it was just so crazy, not surprising, but just so wild to see the entire left side of the hall there of the Congress just sitting down, not even being able to stand up for American citizens over illegal immigrants. And that really just tells you all you need to know, in my opinion.
It sure does. And how about also another major moment last night that I think just shows you how much Trump knows how to push the buttons of the Democrats or how to make them look terrible when they wouldn't clap for the mother of the child that was brutally injured by a criminal that had been released on a no bail situation, and they can't even applaud a suffering mother because they hate Donald Trump so much. I mean, the Democrats, he really made them look foolish at times last night, in my opinion.
He did, and there were a lot of special guests that were honored last night. I was not happy to see this. This is the wrong word choice, but it was quite special to see the parents of Irina Zarutska, who was stabbed on the subway in North Carolina in cold blood, having her parents.
That's the mom I'm talking about. Yeah, that's the mom I'm talking about. Her mother. You know, they flee Ukraine, they flee war, and then they have to deal. Then you know, the daughter gets assaulted thanks to, you know, the loony. That guy shouldn't even have been out on the streets, but thanks to lunatic Democratic legislation, he was. And this family is suffering. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. And again, Tony, I've certainly had my criticisms of Donald Trump in the second term, and I think there are some things that he certainly is not hitting the mark on. But when you see last night just how disgusting the left is and how anti-American they are, you do have an appreciation, even though Donald Trump, again, is, in my opinion, not hitting the mark on a lot of these campaign promises. Can you imagine even the alternative after seeing last night the Ilhan Omars, the Rashid Tlaibs, just the vileness of the left and not being able to stand and applaud for many of the things that we just mentioned. It is a nice check to say, wow, I can't even imagine if the left would have won in 2024 and having a Kamala Harris up there behind the podium versus Donald Trump. So we certainly, no pun intended, but dodged a bullet with that one. I mean, Donald Trump certainly, him being in charge and shedding light on these things like the crime, like the corruption, calling these people out by name. I thought it was great last night, talking about the insider trading, and he called Nancy Pelosi out by name. And
that was great.
There was a sliver of me when he was talking about the insider trading, or whether he was talking about he was telling the American public, look around at all these faces in the Democrat Party. These are the people that are not putting your interests first. They're putting the interest of these illegal migrants first. They're putting the interest of criminals first. I want you, the American public, to put a face to these names and remember that these people do not have your back. They do not have the best interest of America. So I thought that was incredible. But then I thought he was going to follow that up with, okay, anybody that didn't stand for American citizens over illegal immigrants, please usher your way out, because we're going to have a SWAT car waiting. I thought he was – I really did for a slight second there. I thought he was going to declare last night on live TV, all of these people sitting down that are in favor of illegal immigrants over Americans, well, they all just committed treason. Yeah, that was the hopium in me, Tony. I would have been a kid on Christmas if he could have stuck the landing.
Don't be surprised if that wasn't actually discussed. If he didn't bring that up, like, maybe we can.
Yeah. I mean, I was really, Tony, I was on the edge of my seat. Like, my hands were starting to get a little sweaty, because I really thought Trump might actually go through and take it a step further. But nonetheless, I thought it was a strong speech. I think it was the ending. It was a little abrupt. I thought it tailed off a bit there at the end, but overall, I would give it a solid B or B+. I really thought he did a great job last night.
It was a throwback to your point earlier. It was a throwback to the old Donald Trump. And listen, the criticism that you have had for this president, and then I have had also with this president, both in our conversations together and, you know, and throughout other, you know, parts of the show here, are all very valid. And I think that this Donald Trump, you know, now I think he showed last night what he's capable of. He showed last night what, you know, how he feels and how passionately he feels about a lot of these issues. But it's going to be all about the follow-up from this point on. Talking to Danny Fine, News Talk 100%. STL contributor. Want to talk a minute here about the Democratic rebuttal and Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger. Talk about, you know what, like, as good as Donald Trump was at exposing the Democrats have no problem exposing themselves. I want to play just a little less than a minute of this rebuttal last night that just really chills me, that this is supposedly a moderate, middle-of-the-road Democrat, and this is the kind of things that they believe. Here's a little part of Governor Spanberger's rebuttal last night.
But here's the special thing about America. On our 250th anniversary, we know better than any nation what is possible when ordinary citizens, like those who once dreamed right here in this room, reject the unacceptable and demand more of their government. We see it in the determination of students organizing school walkouts all across the country, whose voices are becoming so powerful that the governor of Texas seeks to silence them. We see it in the bravery of Americans in Minnesota standing up for their communities, from peacefully protesting in sub-zero temperatures to carpooling children to school, so that
Peacefully protesting in Minneapolis. That peaceful protesting that has gotten literally people killed, and the type of student walkouts and protests that we have seen on college campuses around the country, of vandalism and assaults and crimes that are being committed, and she's glorifying all of these things. And this is supposed to be a middle-of-the-road Democrat. Trump did a great job of exposing the left yesterday, but the left has no problem exposing themselves, in my opinion. Danny, your thoughts?
Yeah, when she said that last night, there were certain parts of that speech where she was starting to gain a little bit of traction, but then she completely blew it when she made that reference to the peaceful protesters in Minneapolis. Let's just clear that up for a second. So the woman that was killed by an ICE officer, she went down there looking to plow her SUV into an ICE officer. She left her child at home or at school or whatever. This is a parent of a young child, and had the insanity about her to get in her car, drive down to a place in downtown Minneapolis, knowing where this is an operation where ICE is just trying to do their job, and got in the way of them, tried driving her SUV into an ICE officer. And then you had the Alex Preddy situation as well. And you mentioned these school walkouts, Tony. Well, these school walkouts, a lot of these kids, and I'm a big believer in the next generation. I think there's a lot of things that we should be confident about, because the next generation, I think, is starting to get it. But you still have a lot of these kids that are middle school age, high school age, that are going out protesting. They have no clue what they're even talking about. These are kids that they're supporting illegal migrants. They're supporting fraud, corruption, violence in our cities. They're just really useful idiots. I hate to use that term, but if you look at the Communist Manifesto, that is something that they say all the time is, we're going to get the useful idiots, we're going to brainwash them and have them do our dirty work for us. And then once the communists get power, we're just going to dispose of those useful idiots, because they're really they serve no purpose to us anymore. So yeah, when she was talking about the peaceful Minnesota protesters and these student walkouts, it just goes to show that this is a militant group. They are very anti-American, and they're completely out of touch with reality and what's best for the United States.
Danny, just about a minute and a half to go here. Your thoughts on what we just mentioned about, the president did a great job of setting the tone and laying out the agenda and the plan, but it's, the devil's in the details, and it's all about the follow through. How confident are you in the president, and beyond the president, the Republicans in Congress, to actually move forward on some of these issues that were raised last night by Trump?
Well, that's the thing, Tony. So if you were a Democrat, far left, you're watching that last night, you thought that was Nazi Germany 2.0. You thought Trump was just a horrible dictator up there. Now, if you're in the MAGA camp, you thought, oh, that was vintage Trump. He said some great things like, this is awesome. You're clapping your hands, jumping up and down. Where I fit in, I'm more in the middle, where I am encouraged to see Donald Trump. He had a lot of energy last night. I thought he did a really good job, but I'm also still very, very cautiously optimistic. That's great rhetoric. It's great theatrics last night. He looked sharp, but it is all about the follow through. Like you said, the devil is in the details. So now I love what he had to say, but now he has to actually implement that and really drive all of those point homes here in the next few months. It's all about the follow-up.
And we're going to continue to keep a very close eye on that follow-up. And can't thank you enough, Danny, for all your help in unpacking this speech and looking forward to what is next. That is News Talk STL contributor Danny Define. Have a great rest of your day, my friend. Look forward to talking again soon.
Thanks, Tony. Always a pleasure.
You bet. Thank you. All right, Wednesday afternoon, almost 3 o'clock, means it's time to have a little fun. We're going to open up Klose's Cabinet with Skip Weber and Mark Klose from KC95. Next.
Are you a proud American? Then join us for the Lincoln Trump Dinner, March 20th at Old Hickory Golf Club in St. Peters, hosted by the St. Charles County Republican Central Committee. The evening features a VIP reception, dinner and program with live music by the Comparato Trio. Register online at stcharlesgop.com. Don't miss this celebration of America's 250th year, the Lincoln Trump Dinner. See you March 20th.
Ever feel like just a number in a waiting room? Hi, I'm Shannon Tribune, Director of Operations with Body of Health Direct Primary Care. Navigating the medical system can be a maze of stress. I'm your personal guide at Body of Health. I handle the messy parts of medical care, the logistics and complex coordination, both in and outside our walls, so you and Dr. Tobler, that's my dad, can focus on what matters most, your health. At Body of Health, you're not just a patient, you're part of the family, because that's healthcare the way it ought to be. To learn more, schedule a discovery call at bodyofhealth.com.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Breaking news at Town Hall. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. The administration has hit Iran with a new round of sanctions.
The newly imposed sanctions are aimed at people and companies accused of enabling Iran's ballistic missile program, drone production, and illicit oil sales. They come as the Trump administration presses Iran to make a deal ahead of nuclear talks scheduled for Thursday in Geneva, and as the U.S. builds up its largest military presence in the region in decades. Greg Clugston, Washington.
America's newest Olympic heroes were the toast of the nation's capital yesterday.
The gold medal-winning U.S. men's Olympic hockey team has visited President Donald Trump at the White House and later received about a 2-minute bipartisan standing ovation during his State of the Union address. Trump also announced that the women's hockey team, which also defeated Canada to win gold, will visit the White House. The women's team had declined an invitation to attend the State of the Union due to the timing of the address. Trump also said goalie Connor Hellebuck will receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor. I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
Winter is keeping its frigid grip across the Northeast as light snow moved across the area where cities are still trying to dig out from this week's blizzard.
It's about 1 to 1.5 inches of snow across southern New York, into New York City area, western Long Island, northern New Jersey. Some areas, a little bit less than an inch, some areas a little bit more than an inch. So it wasn't a major accumulation, but again, just some additional insult to injury after the big snowstorm the other day.
Bob Oravec with the National Weather Service says 1 to 3 inches of snow was forecast to fall today in Rhode Island. Police say a university student died from carbon monoxide poisoning in a snow-covered car. At Wall Street at the close, the Dow was up 307 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Dennis Prager here for AmFed Coin and Bullion. I've always been a strong believer in precious metals investment, and I've always been fascinated with rare coin collecting. But owning the wrong coins that only make dealers a lot of money can be catastrophic for your investment portfolio. AmFed Coin and Bullion specializes in taking people out of non-performing coin portfolios and turning them into gold, silver, or platinum bullion. They tailor a portfolio based on your goals and not what they want to sell you. You'll never experience scare tactics, misleading hype, or high-pressure sales from owner Nick Grovich and his very knowledgeable staff. They will evaluate your portfolio, show you how your coins have performed, and take the time to educate you on the ugly industry practices so that you can make an informed decision. Smart people can make very bad investments when they're under pressure and lack the facts. Call 800-221-7694. That's 800-221-7694. AmericanFederal.com.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Chance for a few light rain showers overnight. Should be done by the morning drive, and then partly cloudy skies, a low of 35 in the morning and a high of 56. Temperatures above normal with light winds. Friday's the great day, though. 70 and sunny, a spring-like day. The record's 86, so no record, but 70 will be a nice one for Friday to end off the work week. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
The Herzog Foundation is the vision of its founder, Stanley Herzog, and it exists to promote quality Christ-centered K-12 education nationwide.
Hi, this is Chris Stigall with the Herzog Foundation. We offer a wide variety of resources relevant to today's families, including a free online publication called The Lion. The lion is one of God's most majestic creatures, symbolizing strength and courage. Named for its attributes, the Lion publication carries articles covering a wide range of topics facing American families and culture, especially related to the education of children. The Lion can be found online at readlion.com. That's READ lion.com.
Sign up for The Lion at readlion.com and find dozens of must-read articles published every day. Visit readlion.com and subscribe for the weekly and daily digests so you never miss an article. Readlion.com. That's readlion.com.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Chris Cooper and Serenity Wealth Management. Discover little-known strategies that could be the difference between choosing the care you deserve or having someone else decide it for you. Get a free copy of Chris's book at serenityltc.com.
Fox News Commentary with Guy Benson, next.
If you're over 40 and plan to retire someday, the window to protect what you've built may be smaller than you realize. As retirement moves from someday to on the horizon, protecting what you've built becomes just as important as growing it. And that's where Noble Gold Investments comes in. They help investors reduce risk by adding gold and silver to their portfolios. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com, noblegoldinvestments.com. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult with your tax or financial professional before making investment decisions.
Here's Guy Benson.
Mr. Mamdani is putting out this $127 billion annual budget in New York City. And he's very concerned because there is a budget gap of $5.5 billion. And so he's trying to figure out, how do we close that massive gap? And surprise, surprise, he is proposing tax increases. He is also cutting NYPD. This is a defund the police radical. We talked about this during the campaign. He was on the record multiple times over, talked about defunding the police. He said, not fake cuts, we want real cuts, defund the police. He called New York City's police department a public safety threat. And then when he was running for mayor, he's like, well, never mind. I didn't really mean all of that, even though I said it as a full-blown adult.
For more commentary like this, go to foxnewspodcast.com.
Here's my problem.
Completely agree with your sentiments.
He talks about how we're divided. Well, yeah, we are. And we need to wake up as a country and realize what's going on.
101.9 and 94.1.
Number one for conservative talk.
News Talk STL.
Welcome back to Colombo Company on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL. Little Phil Collins there to start off. Klose's cabinet this week. Of course, Wednesday, just after 3 o'clock, means it's time to open up Klose's cabinet with our buddy Mark Klose from KC95. Marker, are you there?
I'm here, my friend. How are you?
I am well, sir. Thank you for being here. And also, Klose's cabinet, of course, brought to you by Weber Chevrolet. And Skip Weber on the line with us as well. Skip, can you hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear. How's everybody doing?
Doing good. So, we're getting ready for the show today, and Ashlyn is looking for some music to play. And she said, hey, you guys love talking about music on Klose's cabinet. Guess what? The 2026 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominations were just mentioned, and I said, Skip Weber loves the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Let's talk about it, baby. 17 nominees, including Phil Collins, who we just played there. Jeff Buckley.
Already in with Genesis.
Yeah, But we were just talking about Phil Collins a couple weeks ago on this segment. I love Phil Collins, and his domination in the mid-'80s is maybe second to none. It's Beatles-like, the way that he just had number one hit after number one hit after, on his own albums, on Genesis records. working with Philip Bailey and things like that. Just incredible. So you got Black Crowes, who we were also just talking about, I think, last week, because they're coming to St. Louis this year. Black Crowes, Jeff Buckley, Mariah Carey, Phil Collins, Melissa Etheridge, Lauryn Hill, Billy Idol, NXS, Iron Maiden, Joy Division, Pink. Marker, I know you love yourself some Pink.
I need some Pink.
New Edition, Shakira, the Wu-Tang Clan, let's go. Luther Vandross, I think that's all of them. 17 nominees. Skip?
17 nominees, five of which are rock and roll bands.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I wasn't counting, but
Well,
that's about how it is.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And the argument, of course, is this is the dumb thing about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The argument, of course, is like, okay, well, listen, it's just a music Hall of Fame. It's just a music Hall of Fame. That's why you can put in R&B and rap artists and these other, but not country music. Country music has its own Hall of Fame. So if it's a music Hall of Fame, where are the country artists? If it's a music Hall of Fame, how come Beethoven isn't in the Rock and Roll?
Where's Glenn Miller? Where's Glenn Miller?
Exactly. Where's Glenn Miller? It's still interesting. It's still, I don't know. I think it's still newsworthy. I wish that we had a better Hall of Fame. I wish there was a better organization or a better way to honor these musicians that have reached the pinnacle, the absolute superstars, like the Hall of Fames of the various sports and whatever. But it's just the best. I guess it's just the best that we got, Skip. And I don't know. I like the idea of honoring these guys for their accomplishments, but it is frustrating that it's through an organization like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. What do you think?
Well, they've done. There's a bunch of different classes that they've left out. Okay, they have gaping holes in the arena bands. Okay, I mean the people that own the Hall of Fame are the ones that nominate it. It's a private organization. It's not like the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, where they set themselves up rules and guidelines and all that. They're just people that they just want to nominate it. So the people that own it, they obviously feel like bands like REO Speedwagon, Foreigner, Supertramp, Kansas, Boston, the rock and roll arena rockers, when that's what used to be, where they used to sell all these tickets in giant arenas instead of small venues, and millions and millions of albums and all that, regardless of whether you think they're technically great or whatever, but they don't have there's very few of those in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Very few.
I would even say Poison.
There's very, very few Canadian artists.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. No, I think you're exactly right about that arena rock, that 80s arena rock. I would say that Poison and Bret Michaels has had a bigger influence on music than Joy Division. I mean, not to take anything away from Joy Division, but you know what I mean.
What about groups
or
like
Sade
or Styx? Styx.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. They have very few Canadian acts, okay, and very few foreign acts. They do well other than Britain. So anybody like Scorpions.
Yeah.
Scorpions, or who's just one of the metal icons, or Golden Earring, who's not that big in the U.S. but has 30 albums and was very, very popular internationally, or a lot of the Australian bands other than AC/DC.
Right. Well, NXS.
You don't have anything.
How about the fact that NXS they're nominated this year? I think they've been nominated before. How is NXS not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? You're exactly right. And they're Australian. Yeah. Your point.
So, and like I said, Canadian they finally put Rush in very, very late.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, I think they had Leonard Cohen, and they claimed that Hart was Canadian, even though they're not. They started playing live in Canada, but they were Army brats out of Seattle. But they don't have Bryan Adams in the Hall of Fame. Okay, I mean, how nutty is that?
Yeah.
And like I said, if you look at Canadian sales, there's a lot of groups that were maybe just halfway good here, like April Wine, that tore it up in Canada. So why wouldn't you take that into account? Why would you leave Triumph off? There's just a million things to talk about on how they don't have any sense in what they do. So instead of dealing with that, they throw in
Sade.
Boys to Men,
New
Sade,
edition,
and Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
I mean, I had the rant for the longest time on my show about Pat Benatar because the Hall of Fame would always say, we don't have enough women. So we've got to put Dusty Springfield and Whitney Houston in.
Right.
Hello.
Pat Benatar.
Nobody was bigger in the early 80s album-wise than Pat Benatar when you at least talk about it.
Yeah.
They finally put her in.
Yeah.
But that's so silly how they just talk. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
Whoever suggested we talk about it needs to be fired.
Well, Mark, they got it right with Pink, right? I know you love Pink.
You know what? You got to accept, and again, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, no. Pop Hall of Fame, absolutely. But I
agree. By the way, I'm not taking anything away from Pink. I just know that you. I know that you have a special place in your heart for Pink.
You know what? I like all kinds of music, and if you do pop music well, I like it. That's fine. Even some country and some electronic. I like a little bit of everything. The one story about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is how it's kind of been political for years and years. If you get a chance and you can run down the rabbit hole, go back online, and it was a couple years ago when Steve Miller got in, and the Black Keys inducted him. Where that came from, they had never met before, supposedly. All of a sudden, the Black Keys are inducting Steve Miller. He gets the award and goes backstage and proceeds to burn them down. Burn them down, man. If you get a chance, listen, he goes after the female thing, the rock thing, how much the tickets are. He just blasted them. And it was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Well, he's right. There's a lot of, and I guess we just have to, like I said, like I in one way, I'm glad that there is a institution that recognizes the legacy of these musicians, that have had such iconic careers. But it's just such a bad institution. Is there anything that we can even do about it at this point? Casey's got a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, right? I mean, maybe we just start recognizing that as the official rock and roll.
There you go. Let's do that.
Yeah. But it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
What needs to happen is, I think something needs to form. An organization needs to form, and they need to buy out the owners.
Yeah.
That's what that's the deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You two should do it.
I liked what Gene Simmons said. Do you remember Gene Simmons' quote about it?
No. What was it?
I'm trying to think of the bands that he said. He said something like, "I want to know when Led Zeppelin is going to be in the Country Music Hall of Fame, and when Garth Brooks is going into the Hip Hop Hall."
Right.
Or something.
Yeah.
Something like
it's a good
that.
point.
With
it's
all,
a great
all
point.
the crossovers thing, yeah.
Yeah, because like I said at the beginning,
he got a lot of bad publicity from the hip hop nation because of that. They're all saying hip hop is more rock than rock is country, or rock or country is hip hop. But I don't know. It's just kind of funny.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking to Skip Weber from Weber Chevrolet, Mark Klose from KC95. It's Klose's Cabinet here on Colombo and Company. Some of the interesting viral stories of the week. Skip, what do you think of this? Mr. Clean is retiring. And just like we did with like the Mr. Peanut, like all these brand mascots now, they have like social media, they have like personalities. So he, Mr. Clean, I'm doing big quotes, announced it himself on social media this week that after 68 years on the job, Mr. Clean is retiring. And the announcement for Procter & Gamble is basically just like, we're just not going to use that image anymore. I don't think it's because of any like boycott or political correctness, like, white bald guy. I don't know. It's nothing like anything like that. It's just they're moving on from Mr. Clean.
Are they going to have the product?
It's so weird because it just says that, the Procter & Gamble is just going to move forward without. Procter & Gamble says there won't be any significant branding on these or product changes. It's just Mr. Clean is retiring as of March 4th. What?
I think he's going. Someone said something about Delmar Gardens, that he was going to Delmar Gardens.
He's moving in next door to you, maybe, Margaret. No, that was not. That was a cheap shot. We got that announcement from Procter & Gamble, and we got this announcement from Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts is now selling 48-ounce buckets of coffee.
Wow.
They're testing it in a handful of locations across the country. Each bucket costs around $10. So for reference, a venti iced coffee at Starbucks is 24 ounces. That doesn't do anything for me. But I think Venti is the big one. Is that the big one? Venti's the big one?
I think
So it's twice the size of that. Buckets of coffee went viral last summer after smaller coffee shops started selling them. So it's not an original idea. Dunkin' is just going big with it. To be clear, the new 48-ounce buckets aren't meant to be shared. There's just a hole in the lid for one straw. There's photos of this thing online. Skip, 40. First of all, are you a coffee drinker at all? Second of
Not at all.
48 ounces of anything? Is 48 ounces of anything a good idea?
No.
Super big
That's
gulp.
terrible.
Oh yeah, super big gulp. Yeah.
That's terrible. No, I don't drink coffee at all.
Yeah.
I mean, not I'm not going to say I've never tasted it, but I really have never had a cup of coffee.
Yeah. I'm the same way. It just doesn't. I have tasted it, and it tastes terrible. And I can get my caffeine other places, like my Giant Monsters. Which even I get all the crap I get for drinking energy drinks, which is very valid. All the criticism I get for drinking so much energy drink, but a 48-ounce Monster energy drink does not sound at all appealing to me in any way. Margaret, what did you hear? Mark seemed to think that 48 ounces isn't too much. Mark,
well,
what?
I mean, my crux is Diet Coke. I'm a big Diet Coke guy. And I'll go to the quick shops, the 7-Elevens, the C-stores. You know how much I love those.
Big fan of the C-store.
Oh, love me some C-store. And I'll go in, and if they got you need a tractor trailer to drag this thing out, cup of soda, I'll take it. The bigger the soda, the better. And I guess the extra large at those places has got to be is it 64 ounces or 50? It's big. I got no problem. Now, coffee, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a lot.
You drink that
That's
thing,
pretty
you
heavy.
could run to work. Yeah, you wouldn't even need your car. You could run with the caffeine. But it, I guess it's whatever floats. The problem with that too is anytime you buy something hot that big, it's going to be really cold by you get to the bottom of it. At least with soda, you can load it up with ice and keep it cold. But there's nothing worse than lukewarm coffee. It's terrible. I drink coffee, but it's got to be really, really hot. So
yeah, I'm checking here. Biggest size. So what is the biggest size soda at QT? I'm trying to see what.
Yeah, what's the big gulp? The big gulp is no longer the big size, but that was what.
So the QT the biggest QT fountain soda is 52 ounces.
Okay.
So that's a little bit bigger than the bucket of coffee. And also, there's something about it being called a bucket.
Yeah, that just kind of takes away from
that
it.
adds to it, yeah. That adds to the size of the Dunkin'.
Yeah, it's like grab the handle and swing back and throw it on somebody.
Exactly.
That's what it's.
Exactly. Also, is $10 cheap?
With a bucket of coffee.
Is $10 cheap? Isn't like a regular coffee at Starbucks like $10? I feel like I feel like $10. I feel like if this was like a Starbucks product or like another one of those fancier
Starbucks
coffee places, if it was 48 ounces, it'd be $50.
Right, but Starbucks gets all the add-in stuff, a couple of shots of this and that and this.
Yeah.
And, you just can't ask for a regular black cup of coffee. They'll throw you out. It's what all the stuff, the shots of, what do you call it? What's the extra coffee?
Creamer? Milk?
No,
Milk?
Shots of espresso.
Okay.
Espresso.
Yeah.
And that'll really get you buzzing, man. Now you're floating. So when they start, those are, I think, maybe $1 and $1.50.
Maybe just 48 ounces of just espresso.
Phew, there you go. Now you're talking.
All right, Skip, we're going to get even dumber. There's a new fad on social media that has picked up most of its steam in China, but it is starting to gain some traction around the rest of the world. It's a new diet, and I use the word diet very loosely here. Dieting trend on social media called plastic wrap eating. Okay? It's not just eating the plastic wrap, although that's what it sounds like. You are supposed to line your mouth with plastic wrap, put a bite of food in your mouth, chew it, and then with the plastic wrap, pull it out of your mouth and spit it out. And what they say, Skip, is that this is tricking your brain into believing you're eating. I think we're tricking ourselves into believing how stupid we are.
You're tricking something. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's your brain, but I'm telling you. Oh, my gosh. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Margaret, what do you think of plastic wrap eating? You want to give it a shot?
It's over the years, and I've gone up and down and all that stuff, and you see people. Fern, my wife, ran into a gal, lost a lot of weight, and she said, "Man, you look great. How did you do it? What system? What diet?" She goes. The gal goes, "It's called close your friggin' mouth diet." So it's like, what eating?
Right.
Right. Good for her.
Yeah, that's it. I don't think plastic wrap is supposed to be ingested, although you're spitting it out, but it's got to be loaded with chemicals that are in your mouth. Yeah.
And how many people have accidentally swallowed that? It's happened. The idiots doing this have swallowed the plastic wrap, I'm sure, many times.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
nice.
I know. There you go.
I'm gonna say something controversial here. Okay?
Say it. Let's go.
So I'm getting, I'm the second oldest person on this call. All right. And I'm older than a lot of people listening. So, one of the oldest people in my company. I don't feel old, but I'm older. Okay. So I don't do a lot of the other things that I used to do that would maybe consider vices, and for enjoyment. All right. But I enjoy a good meal. When I go out to eat with my wife, we go to places that has stuff that we like to eat.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't need to trick my brain into that fact that I'm eating. I'm not eating. Yes, I eat to stay alive, but I eat to enjoy. Everything I eat, every meal I have, I make choices to enjoy it. Now, does that mean that sometimes I choose to enjoy something that's healthier for me? Absolutely. But I'm not taking a diet where all I taste is friggin' plastic wrap on something and crunch it. That's the dumbest thing. I would rather die of obesity-related things than do that.
And why does the internet, you're so right, and why is it that the internet has decided that instead of just not eating, like Mark said, instead of just going on a real diet where you eat healthier, don't eat as much, whatever you need to do to watch your weight, why is it we have to create things to substitute or to simulate what we were like? You're solving a problem that's already been solved in a much better way.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like we're just creating reasons to be stupid on the internet. And could you imagine, Marker, pulling up to a nice steakhouse, really nice fancy steakhouse, getting your glass of wine, ordering a $80 steak, and then right as the food shows up, you point at your wife and you say, hey, get out the stuff. And she digs in her purse and pulls out the plastic wrap for the two of you.
Really?
You should be immediately removed from the premises.
Exactly. Exactly.
Just take the plastic wrap and put it over your head and just check out.
That's right. That's right.
Exactly.
You're better off than sitting there doing that. I'm telling you.
Almost out of time here on Klose's Cabinet. Talking to Skip Weber from Weber Chevrolet, the sponsor of Klose's Cabinet, with Mark Klose from KC95. Marker, it's getting nice outside. We're in the last week of February. Unbelievable that 2 months of the new year are already behind us. We have my band's show coming up. My band opening for the Queen Tribute Somebody to Love at the Mill in Granite City on March 20th. Go to themill.events, their website, to get details and to buy your tickets now. It's going to be an awesome night of great rock and roll with my band, Tony Colombo and the North County Sound Machine, featuring, of course, the great Katie Fitzpatrick. And then there's no better Queen tribute. There's just one of the top musicians in St. Louis, Jason Nelson and all the guys and gals that are part of his show. It's just going to be an absolute blast. That night, of course, also brought to you by, just like this, Weber Chevrolet. Can't thank Skip and his team enough for sponsoring that. So we've got our show coming up, and I know you're, Mark, you've been very busy with the band, and you got a cool KC event coming up. What do we need to let folks know about?
Well, first of all, this Saturday, we've been off a little bit. We'll be back at Cafe Telegraph. That is down on Telegraph Road, down by Jefferson Barracks Park. We'll be there Saturday night from 7 to 10. There's no cover charge. While you're there, try the Fred Flintstone pork steak. It's three.
Yep. Oh, baby.
I've had that before.
Oh, I bet you did. And
I've had that, and guess what?
He eats for enjoyment. I know he did. Yeah.
No plastic
Damn right.
involved. That's right. But we'll be there. We're there Saturday night, and then the big KC Rock Party is coming up Saturday, April 4th. Miners Theater in Collinsville. Our gal Lauren's got her band Lane Narrows. We'll have close quarters there. We got some surprises. All the seats are reserved. You can find those tickets by going to KC95.com. And you're right, man. The weather, I think our first outdoor gig we're hoping will be April 11th. We're going to be back at the Dog Prairie up in St. Paul, and we're hoping to be outside in there in the beer garden out there because we love playing outside.
Yeah.
And hopefully the weather takes a turn for the better, and we're there.
Yeah, we're still getting, we dipped down into the super cold temperatures a couple days ago earlier this week, but it seems like, those cold, those windows of cold weather are getting shorter and less prevalent. So hopefully we are turning the corner. We're only like a week and a half away from springing forward with the clocks, too. I can't wait for that. Another great sign that we're heading in the right direction. And Skip, before we go, like I mentioned, end of another month. This is the last week of February. I'll be visiting the Creve Coeur Weber Chevrolet here later this week, maybe even as early as tomorrow, dropping my truck off for some just scheduled basic maintenance. Can't thank you and all the guys at the service department there at Weber Chevrolet. Just always fantastic and so easy to work with. What's the latest happening at Weber?
Well, we're just having a blast in February. It's a short month. I'm always a little nervous about February because of the fact that it's short, and it's been great. So it's a lot to really celebrate about how well we're doing, and we have a couple more days left. And the deals. And I mean, I always ask myself, why is this a good month? Well, it's opportunity of what's going on, but it's also how our pricing looks and how many vehicles we have. There's more leads because there's more vehicles online and so on and so forth. So it's pretty cool that it's such a good February. And because the month ends on a Saturday, Monday, March 2nd is still February. So everything that we're doing that is so effective, making this a good month, stays on until about Monday night.
Great stuff. Klose's Cabinet here on Colombo and Company, brought to you by Weber Chevrolet. Mark Klose, Skip Weber, thanks as always, guys. Look forward to talking to you again very soon. Have a great rest of your day.
Hey, guys. See ya.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. See you, fellas. Great stuff there, as always. All right, a little bit more to go here before we hand things off to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. I want to talk a little bit about Zorhan Mondani before we wrap things up. We'll do that and more next on Colombo and Company.
Follow Tony Colombo on Twitter at Tony Colombo Talk. News Talk STL.
First thing in the morning and pretty much all day.
Live and local. 101.9 and 94.1. News Talk STL.
John Beal knows that right after a hailstorm, new roofing companies start popping up everywhere. But the Small Business Administration reports 96% of them go out of business within the first 5 years. So how good is that warranty? John Beal started in the roofing business helping his granddad and his dad. Always offering the best roof, best price, best guarantee. John Beal Roofing, not some fly-by-the-night operation. Call my friend John, 1-800-NEW-ROOF, 1-800-NEW-ROOF.
This is Larry Connor's commentary on News Talk STL.
What is it going to take for Americans to wake up and stop demonizing our nation? Listen, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but even many Democrats are realizing we're spinning out of control. Of course, those Democrats are not the far-left loonies. They are Americans who truly want the best for their families and our nation, just like you, just different politics. The loonies are acting as if they have the high moral ground. Actor Robert De Niro saying, "I want America back." I would second that, but at the same time, he complains about all those U.S. flags flying along with MAGA flags. He's caught in the twilight zone, along with Obama, Clinton, even Schumer, who in years not too far past spoke defiantly against letting illegals invade our nation. Then you have the leftist loon, Gavin Newsom, trying to make himself look equal in the eyes of a black audience, but basically mocked them. He said, "I'm just like you. I can't read." Even black radio host Charlemagne the God chastised Newsom, and I quote, with the necessary edit, "Newsom doesn't stand a frickin' chance of being president."
Get more Larry Connors on Larry Connors USA.
Tonight at 6 on News Talk STL.
Do you know why I endorse Cafe Napoli, all the locations? Visit any of them, and you will quickly appreciate the quality of food, service, atmosphere. So maybe I'll see you at Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli Kirkwood, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C. Or maybe you'll find me at Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Now you know why I endorse Napoli, NapoliSTL.com.
Simply Health with Dr. Brian Deloney.
There are over 20,000 studies on vitamin D, and we still treat it like an afterthought. And cortisol, it's misunderstood. This week, we break down the real science between metabolism, inflammation, and midlife hormone shifts. Don't miss it.
Simply Health, Saturdays at noon on News Talk STL. To find out more about Simply Health Integrated Medical, log on to simplyhealthintegrated.com.
Do you own a timeshare? Well, face the facts. You made a mistake. You made a bad purchase. A timeshare is not an investment. It's a money pit that continues forever. If you use your timeshare, that's great. But if you don't and you want to legally get out of your contract, call my friends right now at the Timeshare Exit Hotline. They're an experienced team of lawyers who help good people like you get out of a timeshare contract that they just don't want. Don't throw away your money on maintenance fees. Use it for things you really want. We can help you end your timeshare contract and stop the money drain immediately. If you're ready to move on with your timeshare, call our team right now.
Cancel your timeshare now with this free call. 800-524-1641. 800-524-1641. 800-524-1641. That's 800-524-1641.
On the next
Larry Connors USA.
The story behind the story, the blizzard that stranded hundreds of travelers on Texas highways.
Larry Connors, USA. Now, weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL.
Welcome back to Colombo Company on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL. Before we get out of here and hand things off to the O'Reilly Report and the Tim Jones and Chris Arp Show, I want to talk a minute about Zoran Mondani, the New York mayor, back in the news yesterday, downplaying Monday's snowball throwing attack on New York City Police Department officers, calling the Washington Square Park incident just a snowball fight, his words, despite multiple police officers being hospitalized. Cops were struck with snowballs, causing injuries to several officers' faces and heads while responding to a call about a large disorderly group at the park. NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch released a statement saying the behavior was disgraceful and criminal and that detectives are investigating. However, when asked about the incident at a news conference yesterday, Mayor Mondani told reporters he saw videos of the incident and, quote, "It looked like just kids having a snowball fight," unquote. The mayor added he does not believe any of the suspects should face charges for assault on a police officer, despite the fact that it was an assault that sent people to the hospital. You know, we were talking earlier with Danny Define about State of the Union last night and talking with Rodney Boyd also in the 2 o'clock hour about just the hate and division that is coming from the mainstream political left. And this is what this is. Zoran Mondani, he really does hate cops. He hates cops. Imagine, flip test this. Imagine this was a Muslim protest group that was attacked by another group with snowballs. And people from that protest group had to be hospitalized, had to go to the hospital to treat their injuries. Do you think that Zoran Mondani would be on television or in front of the press saying this is simply a snowball fight? What's the big deal? The Sergeants Benevolent Association sees it differently, saying in a statement, quote, "We cannot condemn strongly enough the recent disgraceful and dangerous attacks on NYPD police officers while responding to a 911 call in Washington State Park." And I agree with them completely. Just add it to the list. Add it to the scorecard. We knew that Zoran Mondani would be a joke. We knew there'd be a lot of damage done to the people that live in New York City, the businesses that try to operate in New York City. And this is just another example of exactly that. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Colombo and Company back tomorrow at 2. Subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. In the meantime, make sure you don't ever miss anything that happens here on the show. And keep it here for the O'Reilly Report next, followed by the Tim Jones and Chris Arp Show.
Hey folks, it's Jamie Allman here for the Walner Home Selling Team of Berkshire Hathaway. I love this team so much, and Rodney and Jen love the team so much, I became a member. So now I'm an agent with the Walner Home Selling Team of Berkshire Hathaway, and I can tell you, as a matter of fact,